Hi guys, it's Kelly Taylor here for Hero Arts today, and I am going to be doing a 2-for-1 technique with our liquid watercolors. These cards are featuring our Winter Scenics bundle, so you'll need some white watercolor paper, and then the Winter Scenics, it's got some really great solid images. We're going to get right into the technique. So Hero Arts watercolor paper is sized that if you cut it in half, you will end up with 2 A-size card fronts. I'm going to spritz this with water, a medium amount, and then I'm just going to take my liquid watercolors. I used Deep Ocean, Indigo, Teal, and Mulled Wine. And I'm just going to take 2 or 3 drops, sometimes more, of each color and just drop it directly onto my paper. I probably added a little bit too much pigment. I probably didn't even need this much. But I wanted to make sure I was going to get good saturated color. I'm going to spritz it again with some water just to make sure I have enough to move the pigment. You can see it's running all over. That's okay. And then I'm going to take my other piece of cardstock and I'm going to press it directly on top, kind of smush that ink around. And then I'm going to lift it from the bottom towards the top since that's where I want the darkest color to be. And then I'm going to have 2 watercolor backgrounds. You can see I have plenty of ink left. I am going to just take a baby wipe and kind of sop some of that up. But if you wanted to use that pigment, you could just pick up this paper and then use even a third or a fourth piece of watercolor paper to kind of absorb that pigment up so you're not wasting any of it at all. Once I have my area cleaned up, you can see this is them as they're beginning to dry, and I'm going to set them aside so that they can completely dry before we're going to do like assembly of the rest of the card. So we're going to move on to the stamping. For the stamping, I knew that I was only going to be using a portion of the cardstock. So I actually set it up to stamp both of my cards at the same time. This is our Dub White cardstock. I'm going to stamp my little deer. They're totally adorable. I'm going to stamp them first in espresso, and because this is more of a nighttime scene, I'm actually going to stamp them twice. You can see that I got a little bit of ink on my village above, but I'm not even worried about it because once I'm done stamping this in the brown, I'm going to do a bit of an ink blending technique right on the stamp. So I'm going to go in with our pitch black and I'm going to angle it so that I'm only adding ink to just the bottom of the deer. I'm going to take a baby wipe and blot along the top edge so that I don't have just a straight edge from the ink pad. I have more of a mottled look. And then this is going to give my deer some dimension. So they're going to be darker on the bottom and lighter on the top. I'm going to do the same type of ink blending technique with my little village. So I'm stamping it first in Nautical, which is our navy, but you could do this in a couple of different colors. You could use grape juice, which was, a darker purple. For the other one, I'm going to use a green. So I picked the ones that I felt like matched my night sky the best. And I am stamping each one of these twice since it is a night scene. I do want them to be as dark as they can be. So I'm stamping them 2 times, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the pitch black. I'm going to go in, hold the ink pad at an angle so I'm getting most of the ink towards the bottom, blot with my baby wipe to get that kind of blended mottled look at the top, and then I'm going to stamp that down as well. Was really happy with the way that these came out. When it came time to do the other village, which has more trees in it, I selected pine at first. And as I was inking this up, I could tell that it probably wasn't going to be as dark as I wanted it, but I figured, well, let me just see and I'll give it a go. So I stamped that down, and then sure enough, it was not, even after stamping it 2 times, it was not as dark as I would have liked it to be. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to do the black just like I did before. And the first time that I did it, I didn't get the ink up as high as I thought that I did. And so I did it the first time. And I realized that I was probably going to have to do it a second time. I just didn't get it high enough up in the trees. which is no big deal. You know, you could do this as many times as you need to get the blend that you're looking for. So this time I definitely moved my ink pad up and then I did the same blotting with the baby wipe, and then I will stamp this down. After I did this a couple of times to get it as high as I liked it, then I went back to trying to find a dark enough green. I did our Forever Green, and fortunately that one worked out to be dark enough for me to be happy with it. So I stamped that down and then I called it good. It is a little bit darker. It's a little bit more of a yellow green, but I was totally okay with it. So here I'm lining up the dies that match this. This is going to just cut out the top portion and leave my bottom portion intact. In order to do this, I'm going to be using our Hero Arts compact cutter. Super nice. I love how it fits on my desktop and that I don't have to fold out the arms for it. So ran one of them through, and then I will run the other one through as well. If you're not familiar with our compact cutter, this does also come with a spare plate, which is super nice to have. So I just keep that tucked in my box. And once those are done, I'll remove them. I wanted to add a little bit of shading. I didn't want the bottom to be stark white. And you can shade your snow however you like. I like more of a blue violet. So I am adding just a little bit of passion flower kind of around the edges, just so, like I said, it's not a stark white when everything else in our card has so much color going on. It just gives it a little bit more dimension and I feel like more of a finished look. So I'll be doing that to both of them using our blender brushes. And then once I'm happy with how much ink I have on, I am going to be doing just a smidge, just a little bit of Copic coloring. This isn't a step that's necessary. The card's pretty without it, but it's just a little added detail that gives the card a little oomph. So I have 2 blue violet markers, and I'm just going to put a little shadow underneath my deer. And then underneath a couple of these little snowbanks that are already stamped there. And again, this is just to create a little bit of dimension. I'm going to blend that out with a little bit of a lighter color. And then that's all I'm going to do to the scene. After this, the scene is pretty much complete until we get to the assembly. For here, I didn't stamp any deer. You totally could and it would look great. But I didn't have anything else that I needed to do. So I just added the little bit of shading to those snowbanks. And blended them out and then called them good. At this point, my cards are dry. I did want to create some stars or snow. It probably ends up looking more like snow. And in order to get that, I'm using our silver metallic. And I just did put a couple of drops and then mixed in just a little bit of water to make it the consistency that I could spatter it on the background. And this looks so pretty in real life. Like, it's so shimmery. And that's really what I was going for because I love the shine. And then to add even further shine, I'm going to be using our iridescent spray, and I just shook it up, pulled the cap right out with the tubing in it, and then I used that to spatter on some more into the background. And this has more of it is iridescent, but it's maybe a hint more pink, and I really just love it. So now I'm going to dry everything down because I am going to heat emboss my sentiments onto my background. And I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to be getting embossing powder anywhere I didn't want it. So once I have my placement, I'm going to treat it with my anti-static tool, and then I will be actually stamping this in our Unicorn Pigment ink. I knew that I was working on a darker background, and I just wanted to make sure that it was going to be a true white sentiment. And so that is why I chose to not use our embossing and watermark ink, but to use the pigment ink, because the pigment inks stay wet longer. You can emboss with them. I'll be using our white detail embossing powder for this. And as you can see, even though I dried it, some of those little spots were still damp enough that they picked up some of the embossing powder. And actually, I was fine with it because it started to make it look less like stars and more like snow, which was really kind of fitting for the scene that we had going on. So I just kind of embraced it and went with it. So once those are embossed, I am going to just glue my scenes down flat. You could pop them up for more dimension. And then I always like when my scenes kind of blend into the card. And so I just found some markers that matched my background, and I just colored in the top edge of it. Depending upon what colors you use for this technique or how they mix together, your colors may not be the same as my colors. Just eyeball it if you want to make them blend into the sky. And then once that was, that card was done, the We Wish You Merry Christmas was done, I just went ahead and did the same exact thing to the Joy and Blessings card. And even though we stamped the black, like you can still see a little bit of that navy, a little bit of that green, and I think those are nice little pops of color. And then that's pretty much it. That is both of the cards. I hope that you learned a little bit of something. I hope that you're excited to use the Winter Scenics set. My talented design team has come up with other ways that they have used it, and these are some other examples that we are sharing here for you to see and kind of get excited about this set. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate the time that you have spent, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.